Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror and Beyond show. Today I want to admit something. I was wrong about my RTX 4070. For the longest time, I thought it couldn't possibly match the 4K gaming performance of the PS5, especially in Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 remakes, and even Resident Evil Village. I assume the 4070 just didn't have the VRAM to keep up. But after experimenting, tweaking, and testing, the results completely blew me away. Here's why I had that mindset. The RTX 4070 has 12 gigabytes of video RAM, compared to the PS5's 16 gigabytes of shared memory. Every time I booted up RE2 or RE3 on PC at 4K, the VRAM meter showed it spilling over into system RAM. That convinced me the GPU just wasn't cut out for 4K horror gaming. Meanwhile, on PS5, games seemed to run fine at 4K with no tweaking. On paper, it looked like Sony's console was the better option. But here what I discovered. Numbers on paper don't tell the full story. With the right settings, the RTX 4070 didn't just keep up with the PS5. It actually outperformed it. Instead of maxing everything blindly, I turned the settings carefully, and suddenly I was getting clean 4K resolution, locked 60 FPS, and only 6 to 7 gigabytes of VRAM usage. On PC, the image looked sharper, the lighting more natural, and overall the games felt smoother. In RE3 Remake, the city streets and Nemesis himself looked stunning. The PS5 version is still fantastic, but the RTX 4070 on optimized settings really pulled ahead in raw visual fidelity. That said, the PS5 isn't out of the fight. Its biggest advantage isn't raw graphics, it's immersion. The DualSense controller with haptics and adaptive triggers makes a massive difference in survival horror. You feel the tension in your hands, from every gunshot to every door creak. On PC, the visuals may be better, but nothing matches that sense of connection you get from the DualSense. So, what settings actually gave me this perfect balance? I'll show them on screen, but here's the breakdown that works across Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and even Village. Set resolution to native 4K. Set Fidelity FX Super Resolution at quality. Set textures at high 4 GB. Anything higher eats up video RAM fast with little visual benefit. Keep shadows on medium. Higher shadows cost a lot of performance without much payoff. Set lighting at high. Set ambient occlusion at SSAO. It gives you good balance of realism and performance. If there is no SSAO, just turn it on. Turn ambient occlusion on. Turn ray tracing off. It looks nice in theory, but in these games, it costs too much for too little visual difference. Set anti-aliasing at TAA. And finally, turn off motion blur and film grain for a cleaner, sharper horror look. With this setup, you get a locked 60 FPS at 4K, VRAM use stays around 6 to 7 gigabytes, and the games look sharper and smoother than on PS5, without the extra cost of ray tracing. Now, let's address one more thing here, HDR. In RE2, RE3, and Village on PC, HDR can look really washed out if you enable it in-game while Windows Auto HDR is also on. The blacks turn gray and the whole image feels lifeless. The fix is simple. Turn off HDR inside the game if Auto HDR is already enabled in Windows. This way, Windows handles HDR correctly and you get vibrant contrast and deep shadows instead of that dull look. So here's my conclusion. I was wrong to underestimate the RTX 4070. VRAM numbers don't tell the whole story. Optimized settings do. With the right tweaks, the card handles Resident Evil 2, 3, and Village at 4K flawlessly. The PS5 still wins on comfort and immersion, thanks to DualSense. But for raw fidelity, RTX 4070 is an absolute beast. At the end of the day, both platforms are incredible for survival horror. But if you want cinematic immersion, PS5 is still special. And if you're after pure performance and visuals, the RTX 4070 proves it can more than deliver. So what about you? Do you prefer the raw visuals on PC or the immersion of PS5 with DualSense? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Horror and Beyond show for more survival horror and gaming comparisons. Until next time, have a good one.